All right, everyone. Welcome to Anatomy of a Scam. Ang pag-uusapan natin sa video na to ay ang gap theory. Now, quick disclaimer lang na ang gap theory ay more theoretical compared sa mga ibang napag-uusapan na natin dito sa series na to. And what I mean by that is, while we are gonna look at a couple of charts for further clarity lang, in the sake na mapaliwanag ko ng mabuti yung gustong iparating ni Senior Spyfrat, be aware that a lot of what we're gonna be discussing will require some work on your part para mas maintindihan nyo at mapagana nyo ang gap theory. Okay? So let's start, no? About gaps. Gaps are psychological in nature. They're a vacuum that begs to get filled. For example, when a gap was filled in the PSEI, the market settled down and then subsequently became more bullish once again. Okay? However, it is important to note that there are gaps that are never filled or take a long time before they are eventually filled. Now, tignan natin yung PSE chart that we discussed kanina, no? As you can see here, nagkaroon tayo ng 1, 2, 3 gaps indicated by the black circles sa chart. And lahat sila nag-fill, di ba? When the final gap was filled, eventually we saw price rose higher. Now, this is not causality, okay? I want to make that extra clear. Hindi po to cause and effect. Hindi po tumaas yung price dahil nag-gap fill siya. Nag-gap fill tayo and then eventually tumaas yung price for one reason or another. But the reason for yung pag-angat is not the gap fill. Now, I feel like it's important to make that very, very clear kasi the gap theories can be misunderstood if i-apply natin siya ng sobrang simplistic na manner. Okay? Now, ano nga ba yung gap theory? Yung gap theory ni Senior Spyfrat ay naglilin sa dalawang tenets. Okay? Tenet number 1. If or when price consolidates around or near gaps, gaps tend to get filled. Whether to the upside or to the downside, it doesn't matter. Basta ang tinitingnan po natin is if yung price ay nagsimulang mag-consolidate ng malapit doon sa kung saan may gap, then malaki yung tsansa na ma-fill yung gap na yon. Yung next tenet is, if and when price drops or rises dramatically, gaps tend to get partially filled before potentially bouncing. Meaning, malakas yung pagbaksak o magpag-angat, tapos tatama sa gap yung price. Madalas mapapansin natin na magkakaroon tayo ng partial fill ng gap na yon and then magkakaroon ng reaction that often leads to a bounce. Now, I say bounce, not reversal. That's important because some people have the tendency to think na porket umangat ng konti, ibig sabihin dapat mag-total reversal na. That's not necessarily the case, no? I am not saying that that doesn't happen. I am just saying to not always expect for that particular event to occur. Okay? Now, before we continue, I just wanted to insert a quick author's note. When I first heard about gaps and gap fills and everything, naturalmente na-excite ako. Bakit? Kasi parang ang dali eh. 'Di ba? Kung lahat ng gaps nagfi-fill, then all I have to do is hintayin mag-gap, tapos bumaba ng konti yung price, bibili ako, tapos babalikan niya yung gap, kikita ako ng pera. Ang dali pakinggan, 'di ba? Now, needless to say, after ko gawin yun for a few times, na-realize ko that it was a losing proposition. Okay? There was no edge in it, at least not sa PSE. So, being the cynic that I am, I decided to go out and gather proof. And I got that proof by way of gathering statistics. Ano ang odds na mag-fill yung gap ng isang particular stock, ng isang particular chart? Diba? So, I went over the charts ng PSE. at the very least yung mga charts na mas madalas kong tinitrade. And then, I went ahead and gathered the data to see kung gaano kadalas nag-fill ang gap sa bawat isa sa kanila. Now, a few surprising things came up. Number one, maraming chart na hindi na nag-fill yung gap. Okay? So, yung fact na sinasabi nila na basta porket may gap, kailangan mag-fill yun, pwede kang madali kumita ng pera, that's not true. At least not for me. Not for the way I trade. Now, the other thing that came up that I found interesting was there were a few stocks, most of them nasa index, na more or less may 100% success rate ng pag-fill ng gap. If you don't take into account yung mga gaps na nabuo nung nag-COVID. And for me personally, I feel like yung data na naganap or nangyari during yung COVID season was an aberration eh. So, okay lang sa akin to not take that into account. Now, as I said, may particular stock or stocks na may 100% success rate na napifill yung gaps. Ibig bang sabihin nun, porket na gap, dapat i-trade na sila? Of course na. Diba? That's not how you do it. But, kung sa mga particular stocks na yon, naganap yung unang tenet ni Senior Spyfrat, if or when price consolidates around or near gaps, gaps tend to get filled. Tapos nangyari yan doon sa stock na sinabi ko na may 100% success rate na pag-fill ng gap, then you can bet na siguradong sigurado kung nangyari siya doon sa stock na yon. Kung nag-consolidate right before the gap, I will be trading it. I will be taking that money from the market. 100% success rate eh. Diba? All I have to do is to wait for the conditions to be right and then I take the trade. Because I gathered yung statistics, meron akong mechanical edge that I can implement whenever na mag-arise yung ganitong type of situation. Now, gathering statistics is not part of yung anatomy of a scam. Okay? Hindi po siya endorse si Senior Spyfrat. Naisip ko lang po na ilagay siya dito to encourage you to be creative in how you think kung paano pwede kumita ng pera sa market. Okay? Hindi lang po yan lahat dahil sa indicator, hindi lang po yan lahat dahil may head and shoulder. Statistics are an important part of trading. For me, because they're proof that something works an X% of the time. Diba? They're proof na okay, there's something there na over time kaya kong kumita ng pera because based sa ganitong number of times na nangyari ito, an X amount, it worked out. And I wouldn't know all of that if I don't gather the statistics. Okay? Now, let's talk about yung partial fills naman. Kung napansin nyo, hindi ko mention yung partial fill as part ng statistics. Diba? The reason for that is gaps that partial fill and run are tricky. Mainly because there's no real way to anticipate when you should get in and take a position. Kasi nga partial fill eh, saan ka maghihintay? Diba? So, author's notes tayo ulit. Konting suggestions lang. Okay? I am not saying that this is what I do, but I'm suggesting that you may want to look into it kasi baka gumana siya para sa inyo. First, maybe consider looking at lower time frames to look for a strong divergence. We've talked about strong bearish and bullish divergences before. Diba? You can go review that video kung hindi kayo sure kung ano yung tinutukoy ko. But, kung kunwari nag-aabang kayo ng potential partial fill and run, then perhaps you can start looking at lower time frames and then try to see kung merong mabuo na strong divergence to help you anticipate kailan kayo pwedeng pumasok. Okay? Next, maybe consider waiting for bullish price action or structure prior to jumping in. Hintayin nyo muna na mag-print ng bullish yung candle bago kayo tumalon, bago kayo pumasok. Now, syempre, merong downside to. Baka mas mahal nyo siyang mabili. Diba? Pero ganun talaga. Naghintay ka ng confirmation eh. There's a price to pay for everything when it comes to the market. Now, these are just a few suggestions that I have on how you can approach itong partial fill. Okay, kasi sa totoo lang, wala po talagang kasiguraduhan na, okay, kunyari nag 20% siya within the gap, kailangan bilhin mo na. Walang ganun eh. There will be times na magka-partial fill, then pipitik. There will be times na mag-fill ng buo, then pipitik. And there will be times na mag-fill tas babaksak. Okay? Now, tignan po natin tong chart ng Merrimark, no? Kung papansinin nyo, itong red circle, may naiwan tayo na gap dyan from before. Okay? Price came all the way back down. Nagkaroon tayo ng partial fill, and then we bounced. Okay? Then we bounce. Now, malamang yung dumadaan sa isip nyo ngayon is, saan ako mag-take profit? Itatrail ko ba yung stop ko? And so on. The answer is yes to all. You can set targets using typical support resistance. You can trail your stop in whatever manner you choose. You can use lower time frames. Nasa sa inyo po yan eh. Wala po kasing one correct way to manage your trade. Ang important lang is that you manage your trade. Hindi yung hahayaan nyo lang tas bahala na si Batman. Di ba? Yun lang naman po importante dun eh. Na meron kayong plano tas ima-manage nyo ng mabuti, i-execute nyo. Yun yung important. Kung ano man yung laman ng planong yun, it's less important kasi over time, magbabago at magbabago kung paano kayo magpaplano. Kasi you will keep improving eh. You will keep learning new things and then you can keep adding to your plans and then before you know it, yung plano nyo 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 5 months ago, iba na. Iba na yung approach sa market. Kasi you've seen na, okay, this works more for me. This works better for me. Okay? So, any of that you can do. Pwede kayo, kunyari, umabot siya resistance dito, trim, take partial profit, trail stop, whatever. Whatever you like. Tumaas ulit, trim ulit, and so on. It's completely up to you. Kaya ako sinabi from the get-go that this is mostly theoretical kasi maraming room for interpretation when it comes to how you execute your trades when it comes to gaps. Ako, I like the statistical approach. Diba? I like having data back up what I do. Tapos, yung ibang tao, gusto nila pure technicals lang. That's fine. Ibang tao, gusto nila quant-based. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Ang important is, meron kayong planong sinusundan bago nyo i-execute yung trade. Tapos, pag na-execute na, nasa loob na kayo, susundan nyo ng maigi yung plano nyo. Alright? Now, let's talk a bit more about gaps. Ang sabi ni Sir Jet Mojica ng BOH Society, gaps only matter when price is moving in the direction of the gap. Okay? And this is true. Meaning, kung nag-gap dyan, tas tumakbo lang dire-diretso yung price, whether to the upside or to the downside, you don't force a trade. You don't chase a trade. You don't force anything. As we mentioned numerous times, hindi po natin pwedeng ipilit sa merkado yung gusto natin. Just because we think na dapat mag-gap fill, it doesn't mean na the market will fill the gap. Okay? So, gaps only matter when price is moving in the direction of the gap. So, kunyari may naiwan na gap sa baba, tapos price is starting to come down, then we take notice of that gap. Kasi nga baka mag-partial fill or mag-fill or whatever. There's no pressing need to pay attention to gaps if or when price is moving away from it. Okay? Pwede kasing mag-gap tapos tumuloy lang. Gap and run. So kapag hindi naman lumalapit yung price doon sa gap, hindi po natin siya kailangan pagbuhusan ng maraming atensyon. So guys, dito po nagtatapos yung video natin about gap theory, no? Now the truth is, I recorded this video 15 times. I've been at it for most of the day. And at the end of those 15 recordings, this is as clear as I can make it given the parameters na meron tayo regarding gap theory. I know I've said it, pero it bears repeating. A lot of it is theoretical. It needs additional confluence for you to be able to trade gaps in a more scientific or systematic manner. Diba? I gave you some of my personal notes kung paano ko tinitrade yung mga gaps by studying statistics and everything, but you don't have to do it that way. You can look for other ways. You can be more creative. Diba? So, ang pinaka masasabi ko lang with regards dito sa gap theory before we end this video is aralin niyo po siya ng mabuti. Aralin niyo yung structure ng mabuti and apply whatever you learn sa mga natutunan po natin kay Senior Spyfrat regarding gap theory. Idagdag po natin doon. Diba? You will find that more often than not, you will be rewarded for doing so. I certainly was. So guys, dito po nagtatapos yung video natin, no? I hope na naintindihan nyo po yung pinag-uusapan natin regarding gap theory. As I said, I repeated it a lot of times, so I hope it made some sense. If you have questions, please feel free to let us know in the comment section below. Next week, ang pag-uusapan po natin ay ang Goku na. After ng Goku, the Anatomy of a Scam series will end. Okay? So, by that time, kung hindi nyo pa po natatanong, yung mga gusto nyong itanong, whether sa akin or kay Senior Spyfrat, mahihirapan na po tayong balikan yon. So please, wag pong mahihiya. Just post all your questions in the comment section below. And as always guys, maraming salamat po sa panonood. I really appreciate it. Good luck and happy trading!